So hello there, and welcome back to another Night at the Movies podcast. And it's Friday night, and in these podcasts, I like talking all things movies, TV, and whatever I want, whenever I want. And in today's podcast, I'm continuing on with my BFI film reviews as I review Emilia Pérez, A Real Pain, and to finish off with The Wild Robot. But just before I do that, I want to quickly say that I am currently in Scotland. That's where I'm filming from, so it's a bit different than the environment I was in last time, and it's of course different than the environment I'm usually when I record these reviews. Usually I'm in my bedroom, but you know, can't be helped today as I am still away. And my voice is getting a little better. If you watched or listened to my last podcast, you'll know that my voice wasn't the best. It's better today. My throat still hurts, so bear with me today because my voice still isn't the best. But apart from that, this should be a great and fun podcast to listen to and or watch. So let's quickly talk about the BFI Film Festival and my experience there overall, because I've now left London. As I said already, I'm in Scotland, and having left London and having been to all my screenings at the BFI London Film Festival for this year, I can say I had a great time there. You know, I know I said it in my last podcast, but I'm going to say it again here. I love watching a film with a huge, full audience, with an audience that actually seems engaged in the movie, because I don't usually get that where I come from. Usually when I watch a film at the cinema back in my hometown, for lack of a better phrase, usually the cinema isn't too full. Whilst when I was watching it in London, the cinema was packed, and it was a huge cinema. I was watching, all the films this year actually that I saw were in the Royal Festival Hall, and being in the hall with what felt like over 500 people. I mean, I don't really know how many people were in there, but it felt like a hell of a lot, was something quite special. So watching all the films this year in the Royal Festival Hall was a real treat, and the experience itself was just fantastic. It was the second year I'd been. I went last year, in which last year I went to the BFI Film Festival and I watched The Bike Riders, Maestro and Priscilla. And this year I went to the BFI Film Festival and I watched the Elton John documentary, titled Elton John Never Too Late. Then I watched, what did I watch after that? Was it Conclave? Yeah, I wasn't big on Conclave. Then I watched the Steve McQueen film Blitz. And then, and these are the films I'm reviewing, and these are the films I'm reviewing in today's podcast. Then I watched Emilia Pérez, A Real Pain, and The Wild Robot. Not necessarily in that order, but those were the other films I watched at the BFI Film Festival, and those are the other films I'm going to be reviewing in today's podcast. So without further ado, let's get into my review of Emilia Pérez. So, Emilia Pérez, better get the title right. Emilia Pérez is getting a limited theatrical release on the 25th of October, and then releases on Netflix on November the 13th. And the film is written and directed by Jack Adid. I can't pronounce his name. I'll put it there. But it's directed by Jack Adidad. Apologies if I mispronounced his name. I almost certainly did. Who I'm not familiar with as a director. Although I went to the premiere of this and he came out on stage and there was this ooh in the crowd, this sense of, oh my god, he is one heck of a filmmaker. But I am not familiar with any of his work. I have looked up and he's done plenty of films in the past, but again, not familiar with any of his work, as I said 3 times now. And this film stars Zoe Saldana, Selena Gomez, Adriana Pez, I think that's how you pronounce her name. Apologies if it's Adriana Paz. I'm reading this off my tablet and it's in quite I'm reading off this writing I did, which is very small. So anyway, yes, it's Adriana Pez and Carla Sofia Grascon who plays Emilia Pérez in this film. And I'm not going to do a plot synopsis for this movie because I feel it's one of those films where it's probably best you discover the plot when you watch it. But I will say the film is best described. I would best describe this film as a drug cartel trans family drama musical that shifts genre from one section of the film to the next. There is nothing quite like it that I've seen for a while. And I was excited about seeing this movie. This is one of the movies I really wanted to see at the BFI London Film Festival because it's been getting a lot of buzz. Some people have been calling it Oscar. Some people have been calling it an Oscar, a Best Picture Oscar contender at that, and it won a couple of awards at the Cannes Film Festival early this year. It's been getting a hell of a lot of buzz, and some people be calling it a Best Picture contender. And after seeing the film the other day, I completely understand why. Emilia Pérez is a very unique film. I can't quite put my finger on how I feel about it. Like, I know I enjoyed it. I know that for certain. I think it's a very good film. But I'm not quite sure why I think it's a very good film because I have truly not seen anything like it. I don't understand how the people behind this movie came up with this idea and how they made it work because it shouldn't work at all. You know, on top of being this film about a drug cartel, about somebody who wants to become a woman, this very dodgy person who wants to become a woman, on top of being this film about a family drama, on top of being this film about redemption, and this film about many other things, which I'm not going to get into because some of them are spoilers. You know, this film turns into a very different genre in the final section of the movie. And on top of being all these different genres, it's a musical. And musicals really, they're hit and miss. You know, we just had Joker 2, which came out recently, and I thought the musical numbers in that, for the most part, not all the time, but for the most part, miss. And I was going into this, you know, having not too long ago watched Joker 2, thinking, oh God, is it going to be the same sort of musical as that? The musical numbers in this film work incredibly well because they further the narrative, and also they're shot with this energy. They're shot in a way I haven't really seen musical numbers shot like in a very long time. And it's so brilliantly directed. It's got this feeling about it that you can't quite escape from, and it's just so fascinating to watch. And I'm not saying all of it works. I'm not saying that at all. I think about 85% to 90% of the film works. But even the 10% to 50% that doesn't work, I still admired it because what it was going for. And I came at the film like, wow, I haven't seen anything like that for quite some time. And again, I'm not saying all of it works, but I admired it when it did work so much. And all the performances are stellar. You know, Zoe Saldana is getting some Oscars for this movie, and I can see why. It was nice also seeing Selena Gomez in something more different, and seeing her have the opportunity to shine in a different light, because I've been watching her in the later season of Only Murders in the Building, and she's great in that. She's really funny to watch, but she's very different in this movie, and it was nice to see a different side to her acting range. And what is the name of the person who plays Emilia Pérez? Carla Sofia Grascon. It's somebody I'm not familiar with as an actor, but they are fantastic in the movie as Emilia Pérez as the lead role. So yeah, I thought this film was absolutely insane. It's crazy. It's not like anything I've seen this year. I need to see it again to solidify my opinion on it. I might do a review when it comes out on Netflix, or if I get to see it in the cinema again, you know, I will jump at the opportunity. I don't know if I will because I'm incredibly busy over the next couple of weeks, but if I get the chance to see it in the cinema, I will, and I highly recommend other people do the same, because watching it in the cinema, watching it with a full crowd, you could feel the energy in the room, you know what I mean? You could feel like this film overcoming everybody. I need to see it again, but right now, the more I think about it, the more I love it. Yeah, I do love this film. It's very good. And if this is really a Best Picture Oscar contender, then I think we're in a good place with cinema. That's all I will say, because this is a progressive film, and maybe not in the way you'll think. You know, yes, it's a film about a character who's trans, but I don't mean progressive in that way. It's a very different kind of Oscar Best Picture contender at least in my opinion. And that truly excites me. And so, all in all, I'm going to say that Emilia Pérez, I'm going to give it an 8.5 out of 10. I want to give it higher. I do, but I'm not going to say what, but there was a certain part of the film which I found to be a little predictable. I was like, oh, if you did something else, I would have preferred that. And I think once people see the movie, you'll understand exactly what part I'm going on about. But, again, not all the film works. However, when it does work, it works so well. And even the parts that don't work are still so brilliantly done. And I mean, I haven't seen anything like it, and that's really what I want to emphasise. And I came out of the cinema just thinking, that was crazy and so unique in every way you want it to be. And so that's why, as what he said, I'm going to give Emilia Pérez an 8.5 out of 10. Now, let's go on to my next review, which is of the Jesse Eisenberg film, A Real Pain. So, A Real Pain, I actually remembered this bit, I didn't need to check my notes. A Real Pain doesn't release in the UK until the 10th of January 2025, which sounds further away than it actually is. 2025, feels weird to say now, but it really isn't that far away. Anyway, this film doesn't have a UK release for quite a bit of time, but I was lucky enough to see it at the BFI London Film Festival, hence why I'm reviewing it in today's podcast. And I went to the premiere of this, as I did with Emilia Pérez. I think I mentioned that in my review of Emilia Pérez. I went to the premiere of this, I saw the stars. However, I was sat at the far back corner of the room. So I got to see the stars, but from a very, very far distance away. But the thing that most excited me about this film was not hearing the people talk about it. I mean, I was interested in this film simply because of the poster. It had Jesse Eisenberg and Kieran Culkin on it. I've been a fan of Jesse Eisenberg ever since The Social Network. I've been a fan of Kieran Culkin ever since I saw him in Succession. So I had them two on the poster, and I was like, okay, that's what's interesting me. That's why I bought tickets to go and watch this at the film festival. But the thing that really excited me was when I was sat in the Royal Festival Hall and seeing the director, the producer, and the cast talk about this movie, because you could tell how passionate they were about it and how much they had invested in it. And you don't always get that with actors when they're doing press for films. And Jesse Eisenberg, who not only is the main star of the film, but also is the writer and director on this film. It might be his directorial debut, I'm not entirely sure. But he's a director, he's a writer, and he's the main star of the film. He came out, and you could tell he was a bit nervous. He even said, I have a bit of social anxiety, and I didn't expect this many people to be in the room, because again, it was a War Festival Hall, and it was full to the rim. But he came out and he was speaking so passionately about the film, and very fast, but you could understand. He was very fast talking, but you could understand everything he was saying. And then Kieran Culkin said some stuff, and he was really funny. And everybody who spoke about the film on stage was speaking so passionately about it, and that got me excited. I was sat in the cinema thinking, the way they're talking about it, I haven't heard about any of the films in this festival. And I'm not saying the other people who were the premieres, because I was at 4 premieres in the end. Yeah, I was at the premiere for the Elton John documentary. I was at the premiere for The Wild Robot, which I'll talk about very shortly. I was at the premiere for Emilia Pérez, and I was at the premiere for this. The UK premieres, of course. I think all the films are premiered elsewhere. But at the same time, I was at the UK premieres, and I'm not saying that, I'm not saying that the other stars, the other premieres didn't talk passionately about their movies. I'm not saying that. But there was a certain passion with the way the stars and the team behind A Real Pain spoke about this film. So that was the thing which excited me the most about it. And the Google Plot synopsis, if you give me a sec, the Google Plot synopsis for A Real Pain goes as follows. Mismatched cousins David and Benji, played by Jesse Eisenberg and Kieran Culkin in this film, tour Poland to honour their grandmother. Their adventure becomes complicated as old tensions resurface while exploring their family history. And that's pretty much all you need to know about A Real Pain before seeing it. And honestly, I loved this film. I loved it. It is hilarious and heartbreaking. It's one of those indie films that comes along every couple of years, and you don't really know what to expect going into it. But once you leave the cinema, you feel like you've gone through the motions with the characters. You know, there's not many indie films that manage to do that very well, but this is one of them, and it is hilarious. There are so many funny moments in this movie, but it is also very heartbreaking, particularly as the film progresses and you find out more about these characters, especially Kieran Culkin's character. Not to go into too much detail there. But on the topic of Kieran Culkin in this movie, he gives probably my favourite performance of the year. And it feels weird saying that because this film, technically, you know, it won't come out this year in the UK. But when I talk about my favourite stuff at the end of this year on this channel, you know, before we get into 2025, I am going to mention this film because I think simply for Kieran Culkin and Jesse Eisenberg's performance at that, simply for the lead two performances alone, this film worked to me on a level that I truly didn't expect. Kieran Culkin, as I already said, but as I'm going to say again because I truly mean it, he gives the best performance of the year. He is remarkable in this film. I mean, he's different than he is in Succession, but he brings some of that Succession energy with him. And his performance will just break you. I left the cinema. I left the Royal Festival Hall. I keep calling it a cinema. I'm not sure if it is, by the way, but I left the Royal Festival Hall after watching this film, almost wanting to break down in tears. I was really shook up by it, and I didn't really know what to say. And I came out feeling, you know, sort of similar than I did after seeing Blitz. But I think I was more emotionally taken back by this film than I was by Blitz on reflection. And I thought Blitz was a very good movie. But this might be better. You know, there's something about it where, like, I went into the film and, you know, once the film started and it sort of set up the rest of the movie, once you found out what the film was all about, I was like, okay, is this actually going to work for me? Then about halfway through the film, maybe not even halfway through, maybe about, like, I don't know, a quarter of the way through the movie, about 20 minutes in, let's say, you know, I sat there and I was like, I can't believe I'm so invested in what's going on in these characters. It's just, it's one of those films that just, it overtakes you. And I'm kind of a loss for words for how this film worked to me. It's beautifully directed. It's very well edited because it's only a 90-minute film and nothing feels rushed and nothing feels dwelled on at the same time. You know, I think this is one of those cases, as you get the best 90-minute film, you know, the best films that are an hour and a half, where if it was any longer, it wouldn't have worked. And if it was any shorter, you feel like you may have lost something. And I feel this is a very special movie. There isn't really much I would change about it. Not much at all. Because it left me with so much to think about. And in a way that, again, I didn't expect. And I'm avoiding spoilers. So sometimes when I say that, it left me a lot to think about. And I don't necessarily mean it in the way of trying to avoid spoilers. But what I really want to say is this film left me with a feeling that I didn't expect. And yeah, I loved it. And so, all in all, I'm going to say that a real pain. I'm going to say that it's a 9 out of 10. There isn't much I'd change about the film, really. I mean, I suppose I would have liked a bit more time with the supporting cast if I was to say any criticisms. But I do think it's a very well directed film, particularly if this is a first time directing job. And again, I'm not sure if it is Jesse Eisenberg's first time directing. I've got a feeling it's not, by the way. But if it is, I think he did a very good job. And I think it's very well directed, full stop. Plus, I think it's very well edited, beautifully acted, and it's a beautiful film. You know, it's a beautiful film about this friendship that you believe in. Even so, Jesse Eisenberg and Kieran Culkin probably hadn't met before they made this movie. As soon as they were on screen together, I believed in their bond. And I loved this film. So yes, another big thumbs up for me with a real pain, just like Emilia Pérez. And so, All in all, as I've already said, as I'm going to say once more in today's podcast, A Real Pain is a 9 out of 10 from me. So let's get on to the final review for today's podcast, and that is of The Wild Robot, which is coming out at the end of this week. It may even be out. It may be out the day that I'm recording this podcast. I'm not sure yet. Or the day that this podcast comes out. That's what I should really say. I'm recording this podcast on a Wednesday, but because of sometimes how long it takes me to edit, this podcast may be out the same day that The Wild Robot releases in cinemas in the UK, and I know it is already out in cinemas in the US. And I was excited about this film for a number of reasons. First of all, the trailers look great. The animation looks stunningly beautiful in the trailers. And some people, before I saw the movie, were calling it, some reviewers were calling it the best animated film of the year, and that's in the same year that Inside Out 2 has released. And plus, I went to this Dreamworks thing early in the day, this talk celebrating 30 years of Dreamworks, early on the same day that I saw The Wild Robot. And the director from Chris Sanders was there talking about his time at DreamWorks, talking about his work on How to Train Your Dragon, which he co-directed, and talking about his work on The Croods. I think that's the name of the film. I haven't seen that one. But he was there talking about the film and talking about his time at DreamWorks, and that excited me. And I was at the premiere, I saw the cast. And plus it's DreamWorks, and I always get excited when a new DreamWorks film comes out. I'm not saying all their films hit, but they've got enough hits, and I have this love for DreamWorks, so that whenever a new film of theirs comes out, I'm always excited to see it. You know, they were the production studio behind Shrek, How to Train Your Dragon, the How to Train Your Dragon trilogy, Shrek 1 and 2 at that. You know, the second Shrek I think is pure genius. Puss in Boot 2, and so on and so on and so on. One of my lights has just gone off annoyingly, so the lighting on this video may just have changed a little bit then, but you get the point I'm making. DreamWorks, I've been a fan of for a long time, and this is their new movie. Some people calling it the best animated film of the year, so all that had me very, very excited about seeing it. And the Google plot synopsis of the film goes as follows. Shipwrecked on a desert island, a robot named Roz, voiced by Lupita Nyong'o in this film, must learn to adapt to its new surroundings, building relationships with the native animals. Roz soon develops a parental bond with an orphaned gosling, voiced by Kit Connor in this film. And honestly, it's 3 for 3 in today's podcast because I absolutely loved this film. Not only is this DreamWorks at their best, it's animation at its best as well. It is something special in so many ways. I mean, not only is the animation stunningly beautiful, because the animation is, every single frame of this film is stunningly beautiful, and not only was the story so engaging and can't be solved emotionally, it's so enjoyable at the same time, and it's a film which is funny and it's heartfelt, and it works in a way that so many animated films just haven't for me in the cinema. And I was sat there literally in awe of this film. I really love the music as well, because I think the music makes this movie. I mean, not only is the animation something else, because again, it truly is. It feels like every frame of this film has had so much care and time and energy put into it, but also the music is just perfect. The score by Chris Bowers makes you feel in all the right places, makes you feel in all the perfect places. And the song Kiss the Sky, which is by, I have to credit them because it's such a good song. What is the song called? Who's the song? By the song Kiss the Sky by Maren Morris is now one of my favourite songs I've heard over the past year. One of my favourite new songs, is a better way of phrasing that. That song needs to win, and not just be nominated, it needs to win for Best Original Song at next year's, or this year's Academy Awards, shall I say, because it is a perfect song and it's used so perfectly. It's so good. I don't usually care about Best Original Song at the Academy Awards. Don't usually care about it at all, but that song needs to win. The voice cast are all perfect, and yet you've got this voice cast full of huge famous actors like Lupita Nyong'o, Pedro Pascal, Bill Nighy, Kit Connor, Ving Rhames, Catherine O'Hara, Matt Berry, who's brilliant in the film, and Mark Hamill, Luke Skywalker himself. You have this huge voice cast, and sometimes when you have a huge famous voice cast from actors who are typically known for doing voiceovers, it can put you off a film. There are cases where a film has a famous voice cast and it's like, did you need that famous voice cast, or would it be better if it just chose a cast full of great voice actors? You know what I mean? But I didn't get that here. If I didn't know that Pedro Pascal voices Fox in the movie, I wouldn't know, because he's so good and he's so different. He plays it so different than I've seen him play other roles. His voice acting as this fox called Fink is so different than his performance as Joel from The Last of Us, or is as Din Djarin from The Mandalorian. And it was very exciting to actually see Pedro Pascal at the premiere, because I'm such a big Mandalorian fan. I'm a huge Star Wars fan. So yeah, it was very exciting to see him there. Lupita Nyong'o is brilliant as Roz, this robot, and all the voice casts are so good, because I never felt like I was just hearing the voice actors voice these characters, or hearing the actors voice these characters, a better way of putting it. I never felt like I just heard these actors voicing these characters. I felt like they were these characters' voices. And that sounds like a small thing, but it's a big thing, especially when you have a cast like this. I particularly love Matt Berry. He's so good. I forgot the animal he's called now, but I forgot what the animal he plays, the animal he voices, should I say, but I loved him. And Mark Hamill is a bear. If you didn't know it was Mark Hamill, it sounds very different, and I love that. And God, there's so much about this movie which I just absolutely adored, and I might do a full review on this within the next week or so. But my only criticism with this movie was I wish it had more of a conclusive ending. I'm not saying it doesn't have a conclusive ending. I'm not saying that at all. But the ending leaves the door open for a sequel, and it leaves it wide open at that. And I would have liked the door to be... I don't mind that the door was left open for a sequel. I don't mind that at all. But I just wish the door was left a little more closed, because the ending isn't quite as conclusive as I hoped it would be. Again, it is a conclusive ending, just not as conclusive as I would have liked personally. But this is a powerful and extraordinarily animated film that I do think will work for families, and not just for kids, but I mean families like someone my age, I think, would get something out of this movie. And it's just, it's so good. I'm going to say it, this is the best animated film of the year, and it may be the best animated film of the past 5 years for my money. I loved it to pieces, and that is why I'm going to say that The Wild Robot, I'm going to give it a 9.5 out of 10. Almost a 10 out of 10, almost a 10 out of 10. But I just thought the ending could have been slightly better, though I'm definitely going to be rewatching this in the cinema, and when I rewatch it, maybe I'll feel differently about the ending. Maybe I will. But the rest of the movie works for me on such a level that I didn't really care about it. Didn't really care about my problems with the end, because I was just so attached to everything going on. It's funny, it's heartwarming, it's heartbreaking, it's exciting, and it's got all these great messages which don't feel forced. They just feel like they're embedded in there in a way that is seamless and yet so touching. This might be Chris Sanders' best work. And Chris Sanders this film is directed by Chris Sanders, who, co-directed How to Train Your Dragon, which was also one of my favourite animated movies of all time. I love the first How to Train Your Dragon movie. But I think I might prefer this, or at least I might think it's on the same level as How to Train Your Dragon. It's definitely up there, yeah. Animation at its best, yeah. This is DreamWorks at its best, and it's animation at its best as well. And I can't recommend this one enough. Wild Robot is a truly special film, as are all the ones I've reviewed in today's podcast. But Wild Robot, it hit me in a way where I was like, I haven't felt that way about an animated movie in what feels like a while. And I liked Inside Out 2 quite a lot. I think I preferred this film though. And so, all in all, as what he said, and I was going to say once more in today's podcast, The Wild Robot is a 9.5 out of 10 from me. Anyway, guys, that is it for today's podcast. If you have seen any of the movies that I reviewed in today's podcast, please let me know your thoughts on them in the comment section below. And as always, thank you for watching or listening to this podcast. And I think my voice was actually alright today. Well, let me know in the comment section below. Maybe you thought my voice still sounded bad, but I think it sounds okay. So, yeah, please let me know your thoughts on anything from today's podcast in the comment section below. And as always, thank you for watching or listening to this podcast. And if you haven't yet, please do click down below and like and subscribe on this video. And look forward to many more podcasts. God, my hair is quite a bit wild right now, isn't it? Because I'm sweating a bucket. Because I'm so warm in this room right now. Anyway, thank you as always. If you haven't yet, please click down below and like and subscribe on this video. And look forward to many more videos. And look forward to many more podcasts coming very, very soon on this channel. I think my next podcast will be back in my bedroom. So that'd be quite nice. But until then, guys, thank you so much for watching or listening to this podcast. As I've already said, and I suppose this is it. So I will see you guys again soon. But bye for now. Bye.